big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen.
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no.
It is the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
Well, it should be yes. Hell yes.
Hell yes, it is. Right here on the 29th of November, 2017. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you're in chat, as BZ is the chat master here at Sackheads Radio.
Is that like Bassmaster? Only?
It is. It's the Bassmaster 3000.
That's right. Or is it the song from the old Western in the early 60s? They called him Bass. Bassmasterson.
Bassmasterson. Actually, you know what? How does anybody miss that opportunity, right?
Facts and evidence.
If I was a boat maker, that's exactly what I would call it. Was Bassmasterson. That'd be the best boat name ever.
Do you remember this? I actually had my girlfriend at the time buy me one. Do you remember the fish that was automated that you used to put on the wall and it would sing a song?
The Talking Trout or Tommy Trout or Billy Bass.
Like yeah, that was it.
Big Mouth Billy Bass.
And it had, I don't even remember the damn song, but it would play a song and then its fin would flap and its head would flap.
That is, oh my God, dude.
That dates, doesn't it?
And it doesn't date that long, right? So you'd be thinking like 30 years ago or something like that, right?
I was still,
it was only in the 90s, BZ.
My girlfriend gave it to me, and I kept thinking, wait, what the fuck was in my background that made her think that I would appreciate a fish that flaps on the wall? I thought it was completely stupid.
I will have to admit, though, some people have made some amazing adaptions with those, and have changed it so you can add music in and a whole bunch of other things. And I've seen some pretty comical uses for those on the interwebs.
Wait a minute. Does that mean that we need to have one? See, when I'm on and you're on,
yes,
what you can see in the background is you can see that license plate and the picture and a few things. Should we clear all that stuff off and put a bass back there?
A Big Mouth Billy Bass?
So I don't know. Can see it.
That's not a bad idea. You know what I mean? How the hell with the picture of my kids or any of our events?
Yeah,
let's throw a Big Mouth Billy Bat up there.
Throw a bass. What the hell?
No, that's a fantastic idea.
Just throwing it out there in the ether. See if it sticks.
I appreciate it. Oh, hey, there we go.
Yep, there it did. Hey, I had a great show last night.
Oh, yes.
It was lengthy.
Did.
It was in detail.
Yep.
Speaking of lengthy, already we have Jersey Joe in chat. We have Dan Butcher in chat. We have Mike in chat. And one viewer.
Viewer one, thank you.
Yeah. So my show last night lasted all of about 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And my last line was, there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out. So
Casey at the bat.
after I spent all day, plus I monetized, I actually went out of the way to monetize. I shot a video and then put it over to SHR, and I thought, I'll spend $3 for Facebook, and I'll try to monetize this. So I pumped up the hype with the stuff. I sent out tweets and stuff on Facebook, and I had a hell of an audience in there. I had probably 7 or 8 people here in chat waiting for me to go, and the first day... It's true. And then I realized that the thing is, I'm hearing all this stuff on my headphones, setting it up, and I called Skype just to make sure that it works. And I thought, okay, well, I can hear it. Everything's great. No, it wasn't. It wasn't great at all. It sucked. And so after I said, okay, folks, I got to go away because I can't have anybody on the phone, and I can't play any of my audio cuts, and it would be boring as hell just to hear me chat by myself for 2 hours straight, and I can't play the breaks. I said, well, we're going away. So as I said to you before we walked in here, I forgot the one very simple thing that I will admit you told me about maybe a month and a half ago. And you said, when... Yes, it is starting to rain out there.
I just think this is kind of appropriate for the rest of the story.
Yeah, it is. It's a story of doom and gloom without any doubt. But you said, in Spreaker, make sure that little drop-down menu on the left, go in there, and it's got to be on this. I don't even remember what the hell it is. Because... make sure that it's on that, because if it's not set on that, you're not going to be able to hear anything.
Yes, lad.
So after the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, what did I do?
Texted me.
I whined to Sean.
Your own personal IT and
I know.
on-call producer.
And so I whined to Sean. He walked across the street, came in, said, hey, I was sitting outside listening to your show, and all of a sudden it stopped, and then I get this text, and I said, I can hear myself, but I can't. So Sean went in, sat down within 10 seconds. Sean goes into the drop-down menu, goes, did you look at this? And of course, the answer is, no, I didn't. So I killed my show because I didn't have the right thing clicked in a drop-down menu.
Well,
That's how smart I am.
And it was funny because the entire time that I was on my way over here, I'm like, all right, don't kill it. Don't kill it. I just need like 2 minutes. Don't kill it. I knew already what it was.
I'm sure you did.
I have been snake bit as well. In my learning how to engineer this show, I have been snake bit. And as soon as you described what was going on, I was like, shit. I know exactly where we need to be. I know exactly where we need to go. I got here, and the look on your face, and you're like, I am so mad right now. I'm just so angry.
Dejected, depressed, and
pissed.
I
was like, BZ, all I need is like 3 minutes.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And you're like,
And I said, well, not good, because I just killed the show about 2 minutes before that.
Right. Oh, we learn. We live, we love, we learn. Mostly learn.
So then I sent massive apopolylogis to Dan Butcher, who was in chat. And Dan,
El Duce, he has a couple. He threw us a couple articles today he thought we'd be interested in. We may go over if we have some time here.
Apopolylogis to Dan, because I wanted to hear what he had to say, and I was going to have.
He wasn't doing anything, anyways.
I was going to have Carrie on, so that I had to send her an apology. And then I think the thing.
How much did I get blamed for this?
None. Oh, none.
No,
absolutely
no,
none.
not from you. Our
Oh, wait, Dan?
Well, just people in general. So
No, Dan,
one of the
I'll be
things-
honest, Dan didn't say one bad thing about you
Dan
at
knows
all.
better. Dan knows better.
And Carrie didn't say anything. But what I said
I wasn't
was,
saying from them.
No, what I said was Sean was the savior.
So my running joke, though, is it seems like whenever anything goes wrong here in the studio, immediately chat room goes after my throat.
Well, now, when Ken was here, yes, that was true.
And other people. Mamba has a tendency to blame me.
Well, we'll wait until he comes in and ask him. I'll ask him in
Did you
chat.
see Twitter earlier today?
No.
Oh, yeah, no. He wanted to respond on Twitter, and apparently it was my fault.
About my show?
Yes!
Okay.
So as a matter of fact, when his ass gets in the chat room, let me know.
Okay. Hey, Mary Brockman just stepped in. She's in the chat right
Good
now.
evening, Miss Mary. We
So my
miss you. We love
apologies
you.
to Mary from last night.
Yeah, it was not
It
me.
was embarrassing.
It
The
was
biggest
not
thing
me.
was it was embarrassing because it was one stupid little mouse click. One mouse click.
Uh-huh.
And I told people, I said, I bet it's just one little thing that I didn't click. And by God, I was right.
Oh, yeah, you were
Stupid
dead
as
on.
hell, but I was right.
Well, it's one of those things, BZ, at your age, we can't expect you to learn everything. You know what I mean? You've come so far.
Wait.
You've come so far.
Wait. Now that brings up the elephant not in the room. Right? Yeah.
Trunk and all. Just by his nose.
Yeah. So customarily, if you're looking on YouTube right now.
I'll pull up all three.
Okay. If you're looking at YouTube right now, this is where Clint usually sits,
Yes.
over in the upper left.
Yes.
And you'll notice there's an empty chair, and then Sean, of course, is in the upper right, and I'm down below, and the Sackheads logo is on the left. By the way, you can listen to Spreaker. Go to shrmedia.com. We're live there, audio. If you want to be videoed, if you want to see things in video, go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, or go to the SHR Media Facebook page, and we're in Facebook Live, YouTube Live, on our various channels. Wow, that's a display of some really ugly people up there on the monitor.
Hold on,
you're
I'm working
looking
on
at
it.
right now.
Hold
In any
on.
event, Clint Rebus is sadly lacking right now. And what kind of specious bullshit are we going to make up for where he is?
Well, you know what?
Because it has to be truthful specious bullshit.
Right. So we're just going to go with the fact that really he just kind of comes and goes as he pleases. It's hard, folks, ladies and gentlemen. He's become a little bit of a prima donna over the last year or so. And what's ended up happening, and I'm going to put his picture up here so it looks like he's in his chair. There we go. What has ended up happening is...
Oh, that's hot. Folks, if you're not on YouTube or if you're not on Facebook Live right now, you're missing a grand picture of Clint because OMG.
Oh,
is
yeah.
it's a great picture. I mean, literally, you have it down. Now, I never saw you take a picture of Clint, but that's it.
It takes a little work, and you get used to it, and it's fine. But to go back to what I was saying is over the last year or so, he's become a little bit of a prima donna. He comes and goes when he pleases.
Yeah, it's like it's
He
a
does-
party, and he has to be fashionably late.
Yes.
So how sad that he treats this as cavalierly as someone would going to a party. How sad is that?
It kind of reminds me of like the baseball player who gets kind of good, and all of a sudden, like he just turns into an asshat, right? Like people are just getting sick of him. He's saying stupid things to people, like he's out drinking every night. That sort of thing.
That nose is so big, he has no mouth.
Oh, I know. It's perfect, really.
It really is.
So that's what's happened to Sackhead Clint is I think he's become a little bit of a prima donna. And, he's going to show up when he wants to show up. And for now, he's going to have to deal with the stand-in. And then when he gets here...
That's right. Would he send a stand-in?
Right, wait, he didn't have to. We did it for him.
We did that one time. No, we did that twice for him.
Yes. I'm actually saving it right now for him as well. And this will be his permanent stand-in every time he decides he wants to be fashionably late to the show.
That's a perfect photograph.
And then what always happens is he comes in, and then no matter what, he has to talk, right? I mean, at the end of the day, at that point, he's just going absolutely crazy. He has to talk. He needs to talk. He is going to talk, blah, 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 blah. And the rest of us just have to sit here on our hands.
Does that mean that with that photograph, and I never thought about it before, does that mean he's speaking out of his nose?
Yes. Oh, yes. He always is. There we go. Let me just trim this up a little bit, just so it fits the chair.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's good right
There
there.
we go.
That's perfect. I like that a lot.
So, you know what the best part is I know Clint, and he's probably listening right now on whatever device he can, and he's yelling at the phone right now, hoping that somehow technology will work for him and we will hear him. That's my favorite part of that story right now. Obviously, Clint's running a little bit late this evening. Just unfortunately, things happen.
He was doing more important things like, let's see, what did he say he had to do? I think he had to balance his checkbook tonight.
Well,
that was one thing.
Rotate his tires.
Right, and he said he was going to clean his fish tank.
Right, and wash his hair.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because he doesn't have any.
I shouldn't tell people about that, though, should I?
No.
Okay. About the toupee?
No.
Okay. All right. I will.
It's not time.
I will not say a word.
It's not time.
About that. Okay.
Well, I mean. And ladies and gentlemen, this just in regards to Sockhead Clint's hair, I turn it over to the bloviating Zeppelin BZ with a breaking news story. BZ, how are you going to top the toupee?
Wow, it's very difficult. I can go with two stories. In my department, there were actually I don't see. Well, let me just throw it out there, folks. Sean, do you actually see men wearing hairpieces anymore?
You don't see too many toupes these days.
I really don't. But
I bet you I have more experience with toupes than you do. So go ahead, and I'm going to trump it afterwards.
There were two particular guys in my department. One was a guy named Bill. He was about 6'4", and they called him the Neck because he had a neck like Tom Cotton. I've always said Tom Cotton has the longest neck in politics, and it's true. Anyway, this guy's name was Bill, and he had a red hairpiece. And then there was another guy named Paul in the department who was much shorter, and he had he was on so long. As Bill got older, his hair stayed red, which is kind of a clue.
Yeah.
And this other guy, though, when he got older, he changed his toupee, and he somehow they salted it with some gray in there. But the dead giveaway with that. Oh, and I forgot about Sam. Anyway, with Sam and Paul, the dead giveaway was that their toupes, if they didn't have the right haircut, you could see their real hair growing down on their neck. Right. Underneath the toupee, and I always thought, boy, that looks really dumb. I will never wear a toupee because I'm bald as hell.
I grew up, when I grew up, my father at a younger age wore a toupee. My father was bald from birth. He had a little bit of hair. They tried to do some radiation treatment to try to get the rest of the hair follicles active, and it ended up killing the rest. So my father was bald since birth. My grandmother, God bless her, Crazy K, wanted my father to try to have a more normal childhood, so the tube started.
As a kid?
At a young age, yeah.
No.
Carried him through his life. I think part of it was my father trying to ease my grandmother's heart, and wore them for a long time. As you know, my old man was a cop.
Yep.
Wore it the entire time he was on a job. Actually heard one story in which he was chasing somebody in the summer. A lot of people don't know how toupes are held on when you're completely bald.
That's a good point. I always wondered, never asked,
They
always
have special
wondered.
double-sided tape.
Really?
Yes.
Just tape.
If you're
tape.
completely bald, there's a double-sided tape, and there's tape marks inside the tube. Little round parts where you match the tape to your head, and
because I thought Velcro. I thought if you take it off,
I think when you
it
have
goes.
some hair, I think when you have some hair, they have clips that will help hold it. But if you have no hair, like my father, and when I say my father was bald, I mean as bald as you possibly can get, baby's ass bald, and he would tape it on. I can remember sitting there in the morning watching him get the tape ready and then put the toupee on to go to work, and I can remember it freaking out my friends when they'd stay over the house and they had no idea my father was bald, that he'd wake up without hair and he'd be sitting on the kitchen table. Fun things like that you grew up with. I remember talking to a guy that worked with my father who told a story. One time my father was chasing a guy.
I can see this.
In the 70s.
I get a good visual out of this.
Think New England summer, dusk, about 80 degrees, nice and humid. Guy goes over the fence. My old man goes over the fence after him. At the time, you had to wear your patrol cap at all times outside the car.
Yep.
The patrol cap comes off. The wig comes off into the patrol cap, lands on the ground. The guy my father was chasing turned around to try to see where he was and started laughing.
Oops.
Proceeded to get railroaded into the ground back in the day where you could actually do such things.
Wrong.
So then, at a certain age, my grandmother, if I recall, and I was young at the time, but I can recall something to the conversation of, you're starting to be in your mid-40s. Most guys go gray at this point. We should look at it. And then Dad showed up one day with the salt and pepper tube. Totally different one, just showed up with it, which I think it's one of those things that everybody who knew him knew what it was. And they all knew he wore a tube his whole life. I mean, my father was one of those guys that nobody would dare say anything to him because he'd kill him. But, his close friends gave him shit about it, but everyone else kind of got away with it. And, I can remember when my grandmother passed away, it had to be within the same month. And honestly, for everyone who doesn't know, my mother listens to the show all the time. So if I'm getting text messages correcting stories or Facebook messages or whatever, I apologize. I'm not looking at it.
That's not how that happened.
God bless her. She'll tell me all that stuff, front to back, back to front. But I think I have a pretty good memory on this. And within a month or so of my grandmother passing, he never wore another one. Went natural bald, which my mother loved.
And it made things easier.
Which my mother preferred him that way.
And you save. Think of all the money you save on hair care products.
But I'll tell you right now. You want to talk about dedication from a young man to his mother, even as a young guy. The only time he didn't use it was when he was in the military, in the Air Force. But other than that, he wore it pretty much the entire time for her sake because it bothered her so much. Because it really wasn't for his sake; it was a pain in the ass for him, and he didn't care one way or the other. You know what I mean? My father was not a thin-skinned person. Obviously, wearing the tube was harder on him probably as a teen and as a boy than not wearing it.
Oh.
I have no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just pretty amazing when you talk about tubes. Like, I grew up watching tube 24/7. I can remember being a teenager. I had a kid stay over at my house, had no idea when my father was bald, and I used to know where my father would store it overnight. As we walked in the kitchen, I can remember picking it up and turning around and yelling at my friend Chris, "Look out," and throwing it at him, and he had no idea what the hell it was. And if you want to see,
did he recoil in horror?
Oh God, I think all four.
Did he squeal like a pig?
All four limbs went in all four different directions, and the torso just floated. Hey, good call from Dan Butcher. Apparently, if on the nights that we can't get Clint in the chair, Matt Lauer is now available as a fill-in, so he's got more time on his hands.
Good to know.
Speaking of the news, let's get down to it.
And we'll pay him scale, too.
We'll pay him scale. It'd be great. Let's have him come in here and sexually harass some people. Let's see how well that would work out for old Matty.
Not really.
Let's jump there first, BZ, because I think North Korea is going to take us a little bit longer. We have 10 minutes left in the segment. This is more of a wrap-up of everything that's going on in society right now. Obviously, Matt Lauer was fired today after a complaint initially from one employee. Rumor has it now that there are several employees that are now complaining. The initial complaint stemmed from when he was covering the Olympics in Sochi, Russia. Now other people are coming out saying that he exposed himself to them, that he bought them sex toys as gifts, all these other things.
Do you see a running thread in this stuff?
Yeah.
Like walking around naked.
Yep.
Pinching breasts and buttocks.
Right.
Walking around in the underwear.
Yep.
Showing their penis.
Apparently.
All that kind of stuff.
I've read everything. I read to the fact that he had a button on his desk to lock the door from going the other way. I have read that as well.
I have not read that.
But now you have Conyers. And then I forget the name of the radio host and writer out of Minnesota.
Garrison Keillor.
Garrison Keillor.
That was all today.
Today.
But wait, there's more. There is more. Now, we're going to get back to Conyers in just a second because there's stuff about that. Here's something from NPR. NPR chief news editor departs after harassment allegations. David Sweeney at NPR gone today. So let's see. That's 1, 2, that's 3. people down. Then there's this. I just found this because I was tinkering around in Fox. CNN producer fired over claims of inappropriate behavior.
Yes.
Let's see. Paul Farhi tweeted with 3 women. But the other thing about that is that...
I think we'd call him Ferry.
Ferry, that could be. That could be the way that you pronounce his name.
I think so. I think that's safe.
But I guess NBC decided to fire Matt Lauer today, although they apparently had the investigation open for some time.
Right.
And that brings the big question of, okay, what did you know and when did you know it?
Right.
But apparently there was real honest-to-God evidence in terms of emails that the woman who was harassed produced for NBC, and after that, NBC said, okay, that's it. I mean, we have real honest-to-God evidence, and you're gone.
Listen, I'm no fan of NBC, and everyone knows that, but I applaud them for, look, to take your number one guy from your number one show off the air overnight, not even giving them a chance to resign. At least Brian Williams had a chance to go away and then show up on MSNBC later and kind of try to rehash his career.
Yeah.
This was a chop where they were like, nope, this is so egregious. We're not playing games with this. We're not screwing around with this. I give them credit because that's a hard business decision to make. And I know you can say, well, it shouldn't be a business decision, but it is.
Well,
at the end of the day, you have to weigh your risk versus your reward in that, right? If you just go and like, hey, Matt's going to get some help and go away, well, you have to realize a vast majority of the people who watch the Today Show are women, right? It's a mom show after the kids go to school, and dads too. I mean, but after the kids go to school, people go to work. It's the stay-at-home moms, the people who work at home. A lot of I was actually reading this number a couple weeks ago. I think it's like 65% of people who work at home, out of 65%, it's women. Because it's a tech job and a job that they can work remotely and from home that just fits their lifestyle, and it works out great. So they have and then you have the older retired group that watches it, but a vast majority of their viewership is women. So you have to weigh that, right? Now, I'll tell you right now, and I've already seen it on Twitter and from talking to people, there are women out there that will defend Matt Lauer to the day he dies. He didn't do this. There's no way. This is another witch hunt. Women defending him. He also, everyone forgets, he cheated on his wife a couple years ago.
The funny thing about that is that...
And got Ann Curry fired.
That he presents this likable persona.
Yeah.
But I was on the Jeff Dunnett show today.
Yeah.
Plug for Jeff. And the funny thing is that some people were saying, well, you have to give, you have to understand what's going on here. Then there was a story that Hillary Clinton said that she was glad to see him gone.
Yep.
Because she quantified him as being mean, air quotes, mean. Do you know why he was mean?
Because he hit her in a couple interviews.
Actually threw some questions at her that weren't little puffy softballs,
right.
And he had the temerity to ask her about her email. I mean, an actual question. So he's mean, and I'm glad to see Matt Lauer go.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a big meanie because he said things that hurt my feelings. And listen, I'm not saying Matt Lauer is not the world's biggest douchebag on the planet, right? Again, I'm not a huge NBC fan, but Ann Curry, who's on that show for 15 years, essentially got ran off because Matt didn't like her. And Ann Curry, huge leftist, whatever, but she's a good, I don't want to say reporter, but more of like a good host. She does a lot of documentaries now on MSNBC and in-depth reports and stuff like that. But, she did a decent job as far as what NBC wanted to be done. But because Matt was a jerk, she got ran off the show.
But before we came here, I watched the video of TMZ
yes.
where he's talking to
Bill O'Reilly.
No, it was.
Remember when he was slamming Bill O'Reilly for his claims?
He was off the air, and he said to somebody that was off camera, but obviously a female, "I really like that. Bend over a little bit. I need to see a little bit more."
Yeah.
So that was on video. The other video was Katie Couric, who was being interviewed a couple of years ago.
Said that he used to grab her ass.
Said, he pinched my ass.
Yes.
But at the time...
He was untouchable.
No,
well, and it wasn't a hot topic right now, right?
Much.
It wasn't going on all over the world, and it wasn't being so prevalent. So Katie probably at some point got the boot for that as well.
But Here's the big
Yes,
difference.
that's what he grabbed.
I know we got to go in about a minute or so because we got the bottom of the hour break, but have you noticed that in terms of two things. In terms of sexual harassment, most all of this stuff is occurring by men on the left.
A lot of leftist stuff. Not saying the right's immune from it.
No, but the bulk of the people
On the left.
are
Famous
on the
people
left.
are on the left.
Yes, Now,
Absolutely.
What's happening in the corporate environment? Who knows? Because there's
And like I said,
we'll never hear about all that stuff.
There is a danger to all of these complaints coming out that there will be some false ones tossed in.
You bet.
I have zero doubt that at some level there has been some false ones. That's not saying I deny any accuser, but on the other hand, we talked about this last week. When you have accusations, I want to see evidence. Look,
Evidence, due process.
Right.
Everyone deserves due process.
Exactly. And, Matt Lauer, obviously somebody presented enough evidence where it was a no-brainer. Okay.
Yep.
Completely
That's
okay
it.
with that.
But notice the big difference, and I do know that we're on the cusp. The big difference between those men in politics and those in entertainment or other industries. The guys in politics are holding their mud.
Yes.
And they're saying, no, I'm not going anywhere. I can't say all, but the bulk of the men in entertainment, etc., are they're either getting fired, they're getting laid off, or they're saying I'm going to go away, or they don't have a choice. So these two venues are handled entirely differently. Gosh, I wonder why that is.
Hey, look at
I can't figure it out.
Look at Conyers, right? If I go down and you keep pushing, I'm going to take you all down with me is one of the things that he put out. So that tells you
I can't wait.
That tells you how many other people there are that have been doing this. I mean, and we've seen the numbers. I know we're against the break. We've seen the numbers that the House is paying out for all these harassment claims in the past.
Let's start naming names.
Get on it.
Jackie Spear.
Yep.
And she's got that new bill coming out. I want her to push, and I want to name names.
Yep. I want more.
Let's find out how much of our taxpayer dollars are going to these fucktards.
I agree wholeheartedly. Let's find out. Let's do it. And then let's go to a break right here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on shrmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk. The Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it again.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about?
The last question we cut a couple seconds.
Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done.
It's the first time, okay?
I know. I missed my cue.
The SHR Media Network.
I missed the cue, and I apologize.
That's right. It's just remember, it's the stinger, just like normal.
I know. Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you, BZ, for your editing this week. And
there's another one coming, and there's more commercials coming. So we'll keep them pumped up. And everybody, I'm sure, has. I've actually gotten emails from people saying that, hey, a new Sackheads promo, that is so grand. I really like it.
I agree. I thought it came out great.
And I don't have to play the Freedom Fest commercial anymore.
Well, why not?
People were a little tired of the Freedom Fest commercial from July.
It was so up to date.
And I got to tell you about this story because I was accused of being involved in this. Here's a story from KTLA 5 down in Los Angeles.
Kitla.
And it says 1,800 gallons of vodka stolen from distillery in downtown Los Angeles.
Hold on. Emergency! What most people don't know is that alarm actually goes off in your bedroom when something vodka-related like this happens.
It does. Well, Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, sent me the link to this, and he said that I'm going to have to change the first paragraph, which reads this way. Police on Wednesday were looking for thieves who stole 1,800 gallons of vodka from a downtown Los Angeles distillery.
I saw this.
And I had to change it to thief, singular.
I just want to know how you got through the window.
I think this is a great name. The thief, singular, broke into the Fog Shots Vodka Factory.
Yes.
A family business that was started in Armenia and took more than 9,000 bottles of alcohol worth nearly $280,000. So, Dave, damn it, stop looking at articles and trying to pin this stuff on me. I might have an alibi, but I'm not sure yet. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Oh, man. Yeah, I did see that article. The funny part was I saw it last week. I did think of you. I know you're a Kettle One guy.
Yep.
I know that's your brand, but anytime I see something vodka-related now, I think of BZ.
Yeah, because I end my show with,
Yes.
I'll be consorting with my KC-135 Kettle One refueling team right after the show. And, of course, I do.
And
because I'm nothing if not an honest individual.
Well, and you know what? There's so little integrity left in this field.
But, yeah, see, life is too cheap. Jesus, I fucked that up. Life is too short for cheap vodka. And breaking. Oh, you can't break any of that stuff. A broken bottle of vodka is so sad.
Yes. Whoa.
I forgot the last few.
Got to get them all in, right?
Hey, listen, if you got 9,000 bottles, there's going to be some breakage, okay? I couldn't do it all myself. I had to do it in shifts. It took me a while, but I finally got it. So thanks to Dave. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, it's truly tragic. It really is tragic to see all that vodka go to waste. Hey, if you haven't been checking out shrmedia.com for the articles, I know it's like Playboy. Everyone comes for the article, for the audio. But I
like the photos.
But I need you to stay and read some of the articles here on shrmedia.com. Of course, coming from our good friends, Dan Butcher.
That's right. Is Dan? Yeah, there he is. Dan's still in chat.
Yeah, of course,
Hi, Dan.
Dan's in chat. He's a hanger.
I know. What a guy.
So it's December, and if I know Dan, it's hot toddy time of the year. Dan likes his hot toddies here and there, and especially in the chilly temperature. Usually I'll get a photograph or a text message or something like that with him resting.
And he's holding up a glass so you can see that he's drinking it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So you can see the steam rising
because Dan
off
goes
of it.
16 hours a day, as soon as his feet go up and he has a drink, usually I get a picture or a text message or an unreadable text message or
he's drunk texting.
An amusing phone call. Oh man. So let's bring it down a notch. NOCO, North Korea. Hello, Kim Jong-un. Yesterday. Was it today? Was it today?
No,
or yesterday?
yesterday.
Jeez Louise.
Things now are very, very
serious.
scary.
Very scary.
Japan, and I mentioned this on Jeff Dunnett's show today. Jeff was saying that he believes that Japan and the people within the sphere of influence of this new ICBM are pissed. They're angry. I would go with that. Yes, they're angry, but I would also submit this, which makes things even more delicate. They're frightened.
Yes.
And when you have countries and people that are in charge of countries that are making decisions based upon fright, they may not be thinking of all the possible ramifications of what it is that they're considering.
Mm-hmm.
So when you threaten this missile, it is an actual ICBM now, an intercontinental ballistic missile. It went far beyond into the stratosphere and almost into space.
Yes. 60
miles, and it went downrange 600 miles. The reason that I when they say it's an ICBM, and the reason I believe them is because in order to get range, you must have altitude.
Yes.
So if you have an ICBM that's at that particular altitude, that means that it achieved that altitude in order to acquire really good range.
And
now, when they say that it can now strike New York, well, yeah, hell yeah, New York and all points in between. So it's not just the California coast anymore. It's not just Guam,
right,
or Japan. It's essentially it could
the entire
be,
U.S.
It could be Europe. If you just decide you're going to shoot it west.
Yes. Well, okay, so I'm going to leave Europe out of this for a second. You now have a potential nuclear weapon from this absolute batshit crazy dictator who blows people up with AT-AT guns who disagree with him politically and has threatened to rain fire onto this country numerous times. And I put a tweet about this out today. You have this asshole who potentially could nuke the middle of our nation, Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Florida, Texas. Pick a state. We're going with it. And people are more upset in the media about Matt Lauer. Now, I'm not saying, and I put this tweet out, I said, hey, listen, I'm not saying Matt Lauer is not a douchebag real estate. He is. And it's bad. But that's like a page 4 article compared to the fact that North Korea has obviously developed and have the re-entry technology for an ICBM to strike the middle of our nation.
Well, and they've also said that they have the capability to put what I think the
medium size.
They said a super heavy nuclear payload on it, which means that could be in the hundreds of kilotons.
Right.
Now, the only thing I don't know about those particular missiles are they like Russian missiles? In other words, Russian missiles were not known for the accuracy, but what they lacked in accuracy, they made up for in the numbers
well,
that,
it's
they
kinda
could,
like,
that they could
But it's
kind of
like throwing a hand grenade right now, right? I mean, you don't need to be that accurate. Hell, all you have to do is get it close and have it discharge above the surface.
Well, that's all you need to do, exactly. All you need is a
damage
wonderful
is done.
EMP.
Well, and the damage is done. You're still going to get the nuclear fallout anywhere east, and the electronics are gone. Everything is gone. Folks, and I think it was Lindsey Graham who said that, or it was somebody that's I read today, is that war is imminent because of this. Listen, we've been on this show for 3-4 years now talking about North Korea, Kim Jong-il, and then Kim Jong-un, about the risk that it is. We talked about it with Iran, how Iran was going to become the next North Korea because North Korea was right around the corner from developing nuclear weapons.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. Because if we, well, I'm hoping that we all of us survive North Korea, and that somehow this gets ameliorated, although I have no damn idea how that's going to occur. But if we put aside North Korea, definitely the next big focus is Iran.
Well,
and that's a massive tinderbox in the Middle East.
So here's the thing. So Lindsey Graham of all people, limp-wristed Lindsey as we call him, he said, if we have to go to war to stop this, we will. Lindsey Graham's not exactly a war hawk. But the reality of the situation is, in another quote from him, we're headed to war with North Korea, and it's Kim Jong-un's fault. And this guy's no fan of President Trump, and that's been apparent from the word go.
Not in the slightest.
But you now have members of Congress who are like, this just got scary. And maybe because now it can hit D.C. and not just Guam or Hawaii. Speaking of Hawaii, Hawaii now on the first business day of every month is testing their nuclear war alert system throughout all the islands. It hasn't gone off since the 60s.
Well,
first business day of every month, you will hear the alarms all through Hawaii, warning people that, as a test, obviously, for nuclear war or a potential nuclear weapon.
I haven't heard. Maybe you know. I'm wondering if this is having an effect on tourism in Hawaii.
Oh, it has to.
Quite
On
frankly,
some level,
I
it
have to
has
tell
to.
you, in this situation, would I go to Hawaii right now? I don't think I would.
Well, there's nowhere. Now, it used to be like, hey, if you stay home, you're safer. Now you're not even safer here. Canada, by the way, is under threat now. If this misses and goes errant because their technology for accuracy isn't great, it could very well land in Canada. Mexico. The left's always worried about the Mexicans. You now have a threat there. Folks, this threat is very, very real, and I know we joke all the time about Kim Jong-un and whatnot, but this has gone from a prank. Last year, a year and a half ago, we used to joke that he just, he stomped on the bottle rocket hard enough and it got 15 feet off the ground. They called it a test. This is no longer a joke. There is an imminent threat to this nation from nuclear war.
There's an imminent threat to the world.
Right. But and this is where I'm just going to, I don't give a shit about the world right now. It's our people I'm worried about right now.
Well, we know the first people to be affected would be the closest. And
in theory,
Seoul happens to be the most densely populated city on the entire planet.
But BZ, tactically, why would he do that? He could do that with artillery.
Oh, he could.
So
He could
why would
very
you cook
much.
off a nuke that close to your own people?
Okay. I should clarify.
Okay.
That's my point. Should something happen in Pyongyang or wherever the crazy one happens to be existing at this point, one of the first things that would happen is I would expect that he'd cork off as much artillery as he possibly could south and aim it as rapidly as possible into Seoul to make his presence felt, so to speak. And then he's got literally thousands and thousands of troops on the border, thousands of tanks on the border. Now, we know that his troops may not be in the finest of condition,
But they're meat shields.
Considering the condition of the one guy that ran across the DMZ and got shot 5 times. But we've gone past the area, we've gone past this red line where we don't really have a means or a way to stop him. Now, yes, we did list him as a state sponsor of terrorism, and Trump has said that there are some more sanctions we can make. I'm unclear as to just how many more sanctions you can wager against North Korea, because China is going to be in there one way or another. Now, we have a pretty good idea that China doesn't want this. They don't want to see North Korea get to the point where it becomes a refugee exodus north.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they'd rather see all the little North Koreans stay in their country and not screw with China. And Russia also has a teeny little border with North Korea as well. I don't think Russia really gives much of a crap about what's going on right now. I think primarily it's China. And China said for a while, okay, if he conducts one more nuclear test, we're really going to come down on him. And I kind of thought maybe they would. Well, he did that nuclear test, and I don't see anything happening.
Yeah, the Chinese president's sitting there with an imaginary shake weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Great visual.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you.
So, to do anything to him, one of the first things I was thinking is, okay, we've got the THAAD complexes.
Some of them.
What if, South Korea was stupid enough to say, we'll take one, the other two you can take back. I just don't get that. In any event, if he shoots something south towards Japan again and we intercept it, that's a statement, but how is that statement going to be read by Kim Jong-un? Will that be a predicator for launching a missile? And the other thing we don't know for a fact is we suspect that he has nuclear
capability
devices. Has he been able to weaponize an ICBM? I'm not sure anyone knows for sure, but is that a chance we want to take because he's crazy enough that he could launch them?
Well, and again, I'm not a nuclear expert, but in my humble opinion, I would think that the technology to minimize and weaponize onto a warhead is probably not as advanced as the ICBM itself.
You make an excellent point, because what they were trying to do, it appears now they have accomplished, and that is you have to be able to build a missile that is sufficiently sustainable that when you throw it that far up into the atmosphere, it has to be able to survive re-entry.
Yes, has to.
And their
or it'll
problem
break up
was,
in the atmosphere.
Up to that point, they were having issues with that, which apparently
has been resolved.
Now it looks like they've done something about that.
And let's say they have 5, and they throw all 5 up at once, and one of them gets through.
Well,
I don't know who wrote the article today, but somebody was suggesting, and I forget who it was, and I apologize. Hey, you know what? At best, we should just go in and strike where this missile was developed from, or was cooked off today, or yesterday, and just do a tactical airstrike.
I would expect we know.
We know where it came up.
The other thing is, and maybe you know, I plead ignorance on this. I'm unaware of what kind of Air Force North Korea possesses.
Well, they have.
I know they've got hundreds of thousands of troops.
Right. Their Air Force is not that great.
And lots of surface equipment,
their
tanks,
Air Force
artillery
is not
pieces.
that great.
But
I know they have some. I want to say they have like 20 of the more advanced Russian fighter. I forget which one it is. I want to say it's the MiG-32. No.
The Su-20, the
Su-22. That's it. The Sukhoi-22.
The Sukhoi 27 or 29.
Which one's the Fulcrum?
27.
Right.
I can't remember. 27 or 29.
I think they have about a dozen 27s. That doesn't mean they have the gas or ability to fly it,
or the parts.
Right. So I'm not even worried about that part of it. But something has to be done. Look, I'm sure, and I put faith in our intelligence and our military, that when that missile went up today, based on the trajectory, they immediately knew that it wasn't a threat. But what if it was? Well, what if there was a nuke on the end? What if he tested it with a nuke on the end and it fired off in the middle of the Pacific? And we're still dealing with that fallout.
And that's part of the issue, is we know that
literally the fallout.
He's had some serious issues launching missiles Another what-if incident is like I mentioned the movie The Bedford Incident, which again dates me. That's from the early 60s, in which there's a destroyer called the USS Bedford.
Yes.
And they have sub-rocks on them, and they're playing cat and mouse with a Russian submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the final scenes, the commander says, well, I'll tell you what, right now, what we're going to have to do is hold our fire. The person at the missile board says, Roger, Captain, fire, and hits the button, and the sub-rock is launched. And once, it takes a few minutes to get to its target, then they see that they can hear the doors opening, and in comes the torpedoes, and the torpedo is being launched, a nuclear-tipped torpedo, towards the Bedford, and everything ends up in a nuclear conflagration. Do we have I don't. Do we have the confidence that he's not or can't hurl something somewhere and know for sure that a missile is not going to end up in downtown Kyoto?
Right.
What the hell? Even if that thing is not nuclear tipped, even if it has some kind of a conventional warhead on it, or even if it has no warhead on it,
right,
but still lands in the middle of downtown Tokyo, or even on Honshu or something like that, there's going to be a massive response to that. And perhaps he didn't mean it, but at that point, it won't be a matter of meaning. It'll be a matter of what the hell happened.
Right.
And I don't think that's impossible. That's not an impossible scenario.
And it's one of those things that we in this country miss greatly, right? I mean, through everything that goes on in this country, we talk about the media and the severity of what the reality is. Look, the media is covering all these sexual harassment things. I'm not saying that they aren't newsworthy on some level, but let's face it. In the world of terror, and specifically in the world of North Korea having a potential nuclear weapon that could fit on an ICBM and land in the middle of this country, all that stuff should be page 2, page 3. Why on the front of every goddamn news article is it not a picture of a mushroom cloud going, hey, North Korea may have the ability now officially to kill us all, or a vast majority of us, or kill us all and radiate the rest? And the reality of the situation is, I think that they're missing the mark intentionally because they don't want, and folks, hear me out on this. They know right now that if the people in this country got pissed off and scared at North Korea, they would pressure the White House. The White House, who probably is going to respond at some point anyhow, would be probably forced to respond a little quicker, right? Once your nation's in an uprising and petrified, look at World War II, right? Half the country didn't want to get in World War II. The other half of the country couldn't wait to get into World War II. Nobody wants to go to war, but the simple reality of the fact is sitting here being a sitting duck is not the answer. Look, we're not dealing with the chess-playing Russians in the 60s and 70s and 80s. We're playing with a madman. And you could say Khrushchev and all those guys were madmen, but the reality of the situation is I think they had a little better grasp of understanding of what would happen to them if they launched.
You speak about mad, and I fervently believe that the Russians had a full capability of understanding mad, which is mutually assured destruction.
Exactly.
And what that means is both sides during the Cold War recognized that if someone decides they're going to launch a first strike, you're going to get hit first, whatever the receiving nation of that is going to be. But in the interim, because of the time delay involved, that nation that knows missiles are coming are going to launch everything against the other one.
Right.
That's called mutually assured destruction.
Right.
I don't think this fucktard has any concept
of that whatsoever.
Nor does he want to have that. Because, back up just a little bit. Ask yourself this question.
Go ahead. I want to finish my point, but go ahead.
Okay. Ask yourself this question. What's the point of North Korea deciding that they're going to constantly threaten countries?
What's the point of them having a nuke?
Do they feel so threatened? Now, yes, in the past 6 months or a year, because they've ramped up everything, I can understand that they feel threatened now. Before that, a year ago, a year and a half ago, what was the massive need
3 minutes
for a ballistic missile?
None. See, that's the thing. North Korea...
The surrounding countries weren't threatening
but
them.
let's walk backwards. Let's walk backwards in this really quick, because I want to get to my point. But look, when this whole thing started with North Korea and nuclear power, it was for power and energy. We knew what they would turn it into, but that was under the guise that they got it. And once they were able to start producing, then they started to go down the weapon road. We all know this. It was bullshit. So it doesn't matter at this point if they're threatening, non-threatening, who's threatening them. All that shit's washed out to sea. The only thing left is, are we going to be radiated or not? And I know that's a hard conversation to have in this country, but I'll tell you right now, the reason you're not seeing this shit on the news is because right now we are under the greatest nuclear threat that we've been under since the Soviet Union, and not just earlier in Gorbachev's career and then everyone before him.
I said...
it's severe. You know why the media isn't playing this up to be the big deal that it is?
Because they didn't live through the Cold War.
No,
the bulk of them
this is
didn't
political.
live through the Cold War.
Bullshit political. They'll cover Kushner and Mueller and all these other investigations. If this country is nervous, really nervous, and something needs to be done, and Trump allows his military to do what they do in these situations and annihilate the North Korean regime, guess who's getting reelected? Hands down.
Well, nor can they afford his economic policies.
The divisiveness that
win.
this country's in right now, that the left is pushing, we all know in times of war, that stuff falls away. And if we end up in a war, God forbid, however, it's not far away, and this country unifies under a Republican president, especially Trump, and all the bullshit that the left and the Democrats and the progressives, and you put out an article of how many news media organizations are bought and paid for on the left in the last campaign, how many journalists are bought and paid for by the left, that the left controls so much of the printed media and the audio-video media. We all know this. They would lose. It doesn't matter who they ran. They could get Obama for a third term, pass the law, do the whole 9 yards, and make it possible. He'd lose hands down. If we have to make a strike on North Korea, because it'll be successful. It will be long. It will lead to a lot of other conflict, but we'd be successful. And unlike the war on terrorism, which can get muddy in the eyes of the people in this nation because they're not a uniformed military force, and that has a tendency to play weird with some people because they don't understand they're still militants. They're still their own military. They're just not uniformed the same. For us to go to war with another country, a uniformed country that is an immediate threat to us, not even our neighbors, us, as it is right now, he would win hands down. They would lose the House. They would lose the Senate. So they're not putting that shit anywhere because they don't want this nation to be where it should be with us, which is fucking petrified. We're up against a break.
Yep. And boy, trust me, we've got some points to make when we come back.
When we return, we're sticking with North Korea. All that and more right here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch River Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The Right Guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reverb Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the
it's new.
SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American...
There we go.
Yeah,
no, we're back.
That's right. You played it again.
I played it again. Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. So before we went to break, we were talking about North Korea, and we just had a great discussion at the break. I don't know why we always have this at the break. We don't have this on the air.
Now we have to bring it back.
We have to bring it back and act like we're just as excited as we were. We were talking about it outside. But the reality, you brought up a great point, an EMP. And you said,
you don't have to be accurate. You don't
Right.
have to be good. All you have to be is
Close.
relatively in the ballpark.
But you said, hey, listen, D.C., New York, L.A., one of the major cities, they won't be ready. They won't be in survival mode. California will not be in survival mode or be able to survive.
You've got a populace that's
very true.
That's been defanged.
Oh,
and it's
God.
It's been taught to do nothing but suck at the tit of free shit. And that's not going to play. Now, when I tell you, boys and girls, that Mrs. BZ, or I should say Mommy BZ, didn't raise a moron,
No.
there's a reason that I have a cabin
Cabin in the woods.
about 95 miles away from here at the 4,000-foot level in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Now, do you possibly think that I have access to water and know where I can get it?
Yes.
Do you possibly think that I have 2 years of Wise food storage
Yes.
up in my cabin?
Yes.
Do you possibly think that I might have thousands and thousands of little teeny pieces of metal to go into other pieces of metal should I need them?
And by the way, I need to get your address.
And the answer would be yes.
Off the air, we have to make sure I'm on the know on that one.
Okay. So the answer to all of that is yes.
Yeah.
So I'm ready. I have water. I have what I need. And even then, that's no guarantee that old BZ is going to survive everything.
Right.
But I am in a fuck of a lot better position than people are in urban rat cages.
But I brought up a point after that I think is worth visiting. Is
Yes, and that's the center of the U.S.
Yes. He throws one in the middle. And what happens? Well, first and foremost, it's the breadbasket, right? That's where all the corn, that's where all of our wheat, that's where all of our food, meat, a lot of it comes from.
Grain Central.
Yeah, a lot of Central, right? A lot of our egg. Yeah, we have egg in California and Florida and some other places. But a vast majority of the egg in this country, and you take out the rails. You take out the rails, a couple of major rail lines in the middle of the country. Food's not going left to right, right to left across your radio. Trains aren't going. Military weapons aren't going. Iron's not going. Steel, coal, everything else we need, gas, everything else we need to fight a war is not going. Also, where do we store a majority of our strike aircraft, battalions, all these other things? All in the middle of the country. Nebraska.
Yep.
Iowa.
And our pipeline.
Our pipeline.
From our good friends in the north.
Canada.
comes through where?
Oh, Canada.
That's right, the middle of the country.
Right. So he doesn't have to be accurate to get it over. He doesn't have to be accurate to do damage. He doesn't have to hit DC. Folks, if you think, especially our leftist little weirdo friends out there, if you think if he's going to send up a missile, you're going to go, he's not going to send it to California because we're practically, we're just like him. We're almost like communists too, and we believe in all that shit and blah. And he wouldn't do that to us, but he's going to hit only at D.C. because that's where all the bad people are. Right. Here's a little hint. He doesn't give a shit about you either. This isn't a left versus right problem right now in this country. This is not Democrat versus Republican. This is not male versus female versus transgender versus LGBT. This is none of that. This is an American problem. This is a threat to Americans. This is a threat to all of us. If any time in the last 20 years, outside of 9/11 and the war on terror, that our country has been under a significant and serious threat that we as a people need to deal with and address, it is this, folks. This shit is real. Forget about your grills, your spinning rims, your saggy pants. Forget about your hipster mustaches and horn rim glasses and tobacco pipes and your Starbucks. Forget about your horse and your pickup truck and your country music. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, your iPads and whatnot.
Oh, don't even get into electronics.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah. This is a domestic threat beyond what we haven't seen in forever.
I think I said this before on the show, but I'm going to remind people. I suspect that part of the lack of, I would almost call it interest, the lack of interest in the media is because the people that are in charge and the people that are the editors have not lived under a Cold War. And they've not felt the nuclear threat before. This is not real to them. This is something that you see on a video game. It's very similar to a video game. Yeah, it looks fine, but when everything's said and done, you can stop the game, get up, reset all your lives, go have breakfast, and come back into your basement. All well and good. There are 5 defense conditions in the United States, ranging from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1. DEFCON 5 is the absolute lowest
It's
state
not the comedy jam.
Of readiness. That's the exercise term in that, and I remember these from my dad. The exercise term for DEFCON 5 is fade out. Then there's DEFCON 4, and that's an increased intelligence watch and much more stringent security measures. That was called double take. I had to actually learn these from my dad. DEFCON 3, that's an increase in the readiness of your forces that required more than regular, normal readiness. Now, let me stop there just for a second. Back when the B-52 bases, and there were tons of them all around the United States, during the Cold War, I don't know if people realize this, at every SAC alert pad, there was a big room where all the pilots and the air crews, etc., lived, and they would have certain periods of time on and off. On the alert pad was at least one B-52, 24/7, with a crew in that B-52, and they changed in and out. And the goal was, from the time of an alert, they would be ramped up, ready to go, and turning left down that pad to get onto the runway within 5 minutes. And the B-52 was off. That's what Cold War situations were like. And nuclear weapons were on those bases ready to be installed in the bomb bays of those planes. Nuclear weapons were in the bomb bays of those planes
24/7.
Of the active crews ready to go. Now, they were rotated in and out, of course. DEFCON 2 is the next step to nuclear war. And Dad told me that that's called fast race. He was in DEFCON 1 in 1963, and I can distinctly, he very seldom told me anything at all about World War II, because that was particularly nasty, I'm assuming, for him, and it got really close and personal. But he told me he actually thought for a time during the Cuban Missile Crisis that we were going to get nuked, and that this country, there was every likelihood, because he was operating under DEFCON 1 for a while, he thought that there was a serious chance that we could go to war with Russia. That was the biggest, baddest bugaboo that everybody had then. That's maximum readiness.
Right.
And that was called cocked pistol. Now, we're not in DEFCON 1 right now, but I would suggest nobody's covered it. I wonder if, I'm going to have to go Google this, your favorite search engine. I'm curious if the readiness of our country is in DEFCON 3 or DEFCON 2.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But if, folks, you ever hear anybody say something about, and I heard DEFCON 1, that's about the time that your butthole should get watertight, and it's time to start grabbing your kids and getting some water, filling up your bathtub with water, etc., etc. We've been there before.
So I'm looking, and so there's going to be no official reports on what DEFCON is we are currently in, because I don't think we put that information out publicly. So there's speculation. Website called defconlevel.com. I assume that this would be something that maybe they kind of follow.
What did you do to my mic, by the way?
I turned it up.
Oh.
Why, did you need that? When you were whispering earlier, I was like...
I was listening to me, and all of a sudden I went, whoa, I am partially deaf,
well,
for fuck's sake, but even I heard myself better. What's up with that?
Sorry about that.
Apparently I was looking for a switch on my mic. God, did I hit something by accident?
So your mic goes real hot. It has a lot of drive to it. So when you get amplified, I have to back you down a little bit, because you will start pinning the needle. So I back you way down, and then when you get into your build-up again...
Then I get quiet.
Then you get quiet. I'm like, oh, shit, I have to readjust again. Then you start going louder, and because I don't have enough to do on the show some days, I do follow... I have to follow your audio. So defconlevel.com...
Well, you're like a one-legged man in an arse-kicking contest. When you're the producer...
One-arm paper
over
hanger.
there, yeah, you're a busy little dude.
That website has us at DEFCON 5. DEFCONwarningsystem.com. DEFCON warning system was updated 3 days ago.
I'm not sure I believe that.
Well, it'd be interesting to see
on the
what
other
this...
On the other hand, you have to ask yourself, we have a pretty good idea that Trump has, he stated that his job is not to let everyone know what we're doing, unlike the previous administration.
Right, and I have another website here who's quoting the DEFCON level at level 5, and that's DEFCONwarningsystem.com. Like I said, I don't know how accurate these websites are, but I assume if you're going to have a website called DEFCON Warning System...
You ought to be clued in a little bit.
Yeah. And the Daily Express is saying that 2 days ago we were moved to the safest level despite North Korea. So, who knows? There's no official... DEFCON level, unless somebody else has it out there. I can't find an official one. But yeah, it's I can't imagine after these tests and everything that's going right now that we're not somewhat close.
Well, specifically, I'm looking at a site right now that says that the North Korean missile was fired eastwards. It landed about 210 kilometers west of Japan. Japan reported that the missile was in the air for 50 minutes, indicating a very high-altitude flight path. Yes, another indicator that it's an ICBM. It traveled east for about 620 miles and an altitude of 2,500 miles before crashing into the Sea of Japan. Crashing into the Sea of Japan is called a clue. Now, if you're in the Sea of Japan, I'm trying to remember if the Sea of Japan is north or south of Japan.
North and east.
So the question
north
that I
west,
have,
sorry.
because I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, and I probably should have before I came in here today, did this missile go over the island of Japan?
I have to believe that it did.
And if you're if you're in Japan, were you not watertight yesterday when that occurred?
Oh, I would say that you were absolutely watertight and buoyant.
What? Let me throw this out.
Let
What would
me
happen?
tell you the high. I just want to. We go back to the DEF CON thing, and I did a little research, and because I think this is important. The highest level we've been at is DEF CON 3, in the history of the DEF CON, according to. I know this is Wikipedia, but usually with stuff like this, they're okay. DEF CON level 3, 9/11 attacks. And then it went from 3 to 2, right? Cuban Missile Crisis was obviously a 2. Gulf War, we're at DEF CON 2.
Now, here's the thing. People say that DEF CON 1 is total war. It's not.
Right, but it's imminent. DEF CON 3, we're at Yom Kippur War. And then Operation Paul Bunyan, for those who don't know, again, DEF CON 3 is a big deal, right? Operation Paul Bunyan happened following an axe murder incident at Panmunjom, Korea, in 1976. It's when there was an axe attack on American and Korean soldiers from the north. It pushed us to level 3. I cannot imagine with this guy. I just can't imagine that it's not higher right now. But maybe I'm wrong.
The other thing that we haven't mentioned to this point is that same day, yesterday, right after they launched the missile, what happened? South Korea made a statement.
Yes.
And they launched a missile.
Yes. So, and it's so funny because now you're starting to see South Korea, who didn't want the THAAD system a couple months ago. And this, we talked about intelligence going into the break, and we talked about the intelligence of what we have and what we don't have. This is what tells me we don't have a lot of intelligence, or at least over the last 8 years, we didn't develop a lot of intelligence, and I don't know how far we've gotten in the last year. When South Korea, who is, hey, we don't want the THAAD, this isn't a big deal, we'll be able to deal with this, blah, 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 the South Korean president's just being kind of like a hippie a little bit. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're going to launch a missile. Hey, our war games are going to increase. They don't have intel, and I don't think they expected that missile to go as far as it did. And once it did, it's the oh shit defecation hitting the oscillation, and people are nervous. Now, like I said, he's not going to nuke South Korea. He's not going to use all that technology to throw it 90 miles south.
He doesn't have to.
Right. There's no need for it. But the first strike at him will come from South Korea. So if he is going to attack or thinks he is about to be attacked, he is going to attack South Korea first or simultaneously as he attempts to launch.
If he decides to go, my guess would be that his military advisors have told him that he needs to go for an all-out
nonstop, balls to the wall
decapitation strike on everything and everyone at once. In other words, he'll launch artillery pieces and as much as he can towards Seoul, past the DMZ.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'll launch missiles at wherever the hell they
I think they'll just start pushing
programmed.
south right across the DMZ with tanks and people, and then the artillery will go into Seoul. And the border assets on the border will be tied up by tanks and a couple 100,000 soldiers. And yeah, most of them are going to be meat shields with 25 bullets, but you still have to contend with them. Look at how successful the Russians were with the exact same approach in World War II.
Oh, no doubt about that. They did not mind. Well, the stories that you've heard of Russians advancing on German lines, and if any of the Russians decided they were going to turn back, they were shot. That's true.
Right.
Now, if that was good for Russia under Stalin, then I would expect that those troops in North Korea would be under the same gamut. Officers, if people started to push back or decide to rethink things, my guess is that would be true.
Right.
We also had government sources, U.S. government sources, saying that they heard word a couple of days before it occurred that there was going to be a missile launch.
Right.
So it wasn't completely unknown.
And
but I don't think they were certain that they weren't certain of the type and the capability of this particular missile.
Well, we start to talk about what the possibilities are, right? I know when we interviewed the congressman a while back in Vegas, he said, hey, he still picks up that phone and says, we're going to test. Okay. So we know it's coming for the most part. We could shoot it down if we wanted to, but we're taking at face value of this guy that it is a test. The guy who's not supposed to have these weapons, the guy who's not supposed to be developing these weapons, but we're going to okay a test. I legitimately think we have to start blasting them out of sky, even on the test, because he shouldn't even be having it.
If anything goes
wonky,
if anything goes crazy, sideways, etc., we could be. The next question is, in response to something silly, stupid, or fattening by North Korea, what's the reaction going to be of the rest of the world community, and then specifically China? Will China feel as though it has to step up and get into the fray at that point? Or are they just going to say, you know what, let's just let the U.S. handle crap for right now and see how it goes?
Well, and I don't know, right? So you look at it from China's point of view, he's not. Odds are he wouldn't waste a nuke on China either. They're going to deal with the refugee overwhelm. I think if they try to engage North Korea on the ground or even through the air, they're going to have more trouble than they would have. I think they're going to do what every other country does, and this sort of situation says, hey, we'll let the Americans go in first. They'll do the hard work. We'll offer assistance after the fact and then turn around and critique everything that they did and talk about what monsters they are. However, they did the job for us, and I said that before. I think that's China's plan. That's Russia's plan. All those people, they know that we'll end up being the bad guy. The world will hate us yet again, and we don't give a fuck. And we should not give a fuck what the world thinks.
This president has that capability.
Right, and we shouldn't. I understand we have allies. We absolutely should consult with our allies and consider our allies in our decisions. However, that doesn't mean we should give a fuck what they think. We have to think independently from most of them for our own well-being at this point. And if they're not on board, if we are under the threat that I perceive us to be under, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but if we're under the threat that I perceive us to be under, all of our allies should be 100% on our side right now, ready to go. Should, hands down, be. I do want to take the last 5 minutes and cross this into Iran. Look, Iran is 10 years from this.
Yeah, we talked exactly about that. Like I said, we were talking off the air, and I said, okay, for example, let's submit that somehow North Korea becomes handled, and it kind of moves to one side, and it's not quite the threat that it was. Despite that, we still must worry about Iran. In the larger scheme of things, it might be, in the long run, much, much more deadly and critical than North Korea. Because you're sitting in the Middle East, in Iran. You're sitting in a barrel, a wooden barrel filled with gunpowder, and the top has been pulled off. And Iran is holding a match, and all it needs to do is just flick it for a strike and drop the match, and the entire region goes up. Now add nuclear capability to Iran.
Oh, yes.
And for God's sakes, the Middle East, Europe for that matter, is a hop, skip, and a jump away from everything. You don't need a massive ICBM to turn Europe upside down.
And you just had Iran come out in the last week, says that if there's another war with Hezbollah, that Israel will be annihilated, right? So I think when it comes to Iran, here's what's going to happen. Because Israel, how I want us to be with this stuff, Israel is. Once they perceive it as an immediate threat to them, they don't give a fuck. They are out of fucks to give. They don't care what the world says. They don't care what the UN says. They take the action they think they need to defend themselves. And I think that if Iran gets to the point that where North Korea is right now, actually I think if it's pretty much going to be well before that, I think once Israel decides, hey, they have enough material and they've miniaturized enough and now it's an imminent threat to us, you'll see them strike. And they'll strike hard, they'll strike fast, they'll do what Israel does, great surgical attacks, and then land and go, yeah, we did it, what are you going to do to us? You already call us all these horrible things. The UN says that we're a human rights violator and all these other things. What's the worst you're going to do to Israel? And that's the same thing I'm talking about with North Korea. It could be World War III. Okay, it might be World War III. I understand that. But look it. you look at the history of world wars, right? How far did Nazi Germany be allowed to go before the vast majority of the other powers in this world stood up and said, we have to do something? I know
we had the luxury of a massive ocean.
Well, and
between the conflict, and it was a luxury,
and a lot of this country did not want to get involved. You had FDR meeting with Churchill in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, discussing how when America could get involved, how America would get involved, and why. Because the people of this country were still dealing with the effects of World War I, and they were war weary, like we are in this nation right now. But how far is it going to go? Are we going to wait for North Korea to launch a missile? Because in World War II, we got into it because a couple of merchant ships got torpedoed. Really, that was the excuse. We were already into it from a logistical standpoint and equipment and resources. But that was our military backup, so to speak. That's not going to happen in this situation. The thing that's going to happen that will affect us will be a nuclear warhead living in this country. Do we need to wait for that? Look, if somebody is pointing a gun at you, here's a little legal test. In this nation, if somebody picks up a gun and points it at you, do you have to ask, A, is it real? B, is it loaded? And C, can you fire a shot at me before you draw your weapon, return fire? No. You just have to perceive it as an imminent threat. That's our right as individuals, guaranteed to us. It's a right to self-defense. Why does it change when we're a nation? Why does that rule not apply to us collectively? I know I've gone on for the last hour about, hey, we need to freaking strike North Korea, and there are going to be people out there that are going to call me a warmonger or whatever. That's all well and good. You can call me whatever the hell you want. I have kids.
Well, and
I have 2 young children.
There are 2 things you're not going to come back from. You're not going to come back from a nuclear war. And if you're anywhere close to it, especially today in the digital age, you are not coming back from an EMP. And everything you once knew is gone.
Yes.
Because we have such a reliance, and our chains of supply are so short, we have no stockpiles. Monetarily, that's not the paradigm that we operate on anymore in business.
No.
You can't afford to.
We're up against a break. We come back. There's a whole bunch of stuff we didn't get to. We're going to have to clean a little bit house in order to get through it, but we will right here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of them into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reverb Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com. Yeah!
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show.
Conservative media done right. Oops. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You'll get it.
Featuring right thinking.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
And again, we were having great conversations on the break, and we're going to bring it back in here.
We might as well kill the whole show in North Korea.
I kind of started, well, you know, it goes where it goes.
No,
that's the great thing about Sackheads. Is
I agree.
We go wherever the hell we want.
There's absolutely more gristle on this bone to chew off right now, so I'm totally okay with it.
There is. There is. During the break, I was saying that basically, isn't it funny how the people that have helped to get us here are all Democrats, or so it would appear, and Bush to a degree, when he decided that he was going to take North Korea off the terror list, because he was hoping that they'll listen to what we're doing. Fuck them. No, they're not going to.
Terrorist.
They're just not going to do that. But it's like it's no more different than just a bully in the neighborhood. A bully is going to continue to do what he does until he's stopped. Yes. So 1993, the first bombing of the World Trade Center, what happened? Nothing. USS Cole, what happened? Nothing. We knew about Osama bin Laden. We had the ability to take him out. What happened? Nothing. Then we went into Afghanistan. We decided that we were going to arm the Mujahideen against Russia. So what was that? That was wargaming by way of the people in Afghan who decided that, hey, that's where the Taliban came from. That's where Al-Qaeda came from. And there was no pushback to persons in the Middle East. And then we got 9/11. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Demorats. So I submitted, and what I said to you was, basically, Jimmy Carter and Billy Clinton and Barack Obama were the Neville Chamberlains of our time.
Yes.
I don't perceive Trump as a Neville Chamberlain. Do you?
No. And my point when you brought all this up, and you're 100% accurate, obviously, but my point is all of that's water under the bridge right now.
Well, the threat is real, and the threat is here, and the threat is now.
We can talk about after the fact. Look, it's like everything else. I brought up the gun analogy earlier. Somebody standing at you pointing with a gun. That's not really the time to discuss how we got here, how that guy got the gun, and now he's pointing it at me. After the fact, yeah, we should definitely reflect on it and learn from it. We've had numerous opportunities in this country to learn our lesson with these sort of situations, and we haven't done it. Bill Clinton had the opportunity to pull the trigger and kill Osama bin Laden. Did not do it.
No, wouldn't do it.
Bring me another cigar, would you? I'm not quite ready yet. Right? And what did we get out of that? And we knew he was a bad guy then. We knew the potential that he could bring then. He was already being watched for assassination by the CIA. They picked up the phone and said, hey, we have him in the crosshairs. This is a bad guy. This is a guy who is going to cause us pain and suffering in the future. We need to do it. We need to do it now. And just like a Clinton, God damn it, nobody answered the phone on the other side. Ask Chris Paranto about that.
Oh my God, I would love to. Well, as a matter of fact, I saw him on TV today. You remember the terrorist bad guy who was tried here in a civilian court for Benghazi?
Yes.
His jury decided, in its infinite wisdom this week, that he was found guilty of all charges except the murder charges.
Right.
Except the murder charges.
Right.
And Chris Paranto said, number one,
why did he get
what the
due
hell
process?
was he doing in a criminal court?
Right.
And
For an
number
act
two,
of war.
if we should have actually shot him back on his own soil,
Yes.
right in the head.
Yes.
And absent that, he should have had his ass in Gitmo in a military tribunal.
Yes.
And then we afforded him rights that shouldn't be afforded just because.
He's not an American citizen. He wasn't in America.
Yeah.
He committed an act of war in an American embassy. But he gets the same rights that you and I do, folks?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a problem. And like the strong horse, there's a guy named Smith who wrote a book called The Strong Horse about trying to understand the Middle Eastern Muslim mind. And then there's another one by David Price Jones called The Closed Circle. And if you want to think about how Islam cogitates and what kind of a perspective they have, I highly recommend those two books. Now, having said that, what I wanted to do is get back to North Korea and pose this specifically to you, Sean.
Yes, sir.
What do you think is the percentile, sort of a ballpark percentile, that we'll be able to extricate ourselves from North Korea without having a shot fired or without making some kind of a military incursion or strike or some kind of warlike reaction to North Korea?
Thinking cap on.
Okay.
How could we get out of this?
Yeah. Well, maybe the question should be, first, can we get out of this? And if so, what are the chances that we get out of it by
Without a
negotiations?
No.
By negotiations?
No.
Or do we get out of it by the actual use of force?
Well, first and foremost, right, we've declared North Korea a terrorist nation. So are we going to keep negotiating with terrorists? Is that a rule in our nation? I'm almost positive we have something like that in paperwork somewhere. But I digress. Let me go back to the original question. Can we get out of this without firing a fucking shot? The answer, quite honestly, is no.
I don't think so either.
I don't think we can. Look, I wish we could.
I could say that I was confident that we have the ability to negotiate. I don't think it's a matter of negotiation. Because in order to achieve any kind of a halfway semblance of negotiation, you have to have two sides that are willing to sit down and actually conduct a conversation. I'm not confident.
Well, that's how you negotiate, right?
That North Korea is even remotely interested in that, because the best predictor of future behavior is past performance or the lack thereof.
Yes.
So what's the history of North Korea? What have we learned from North Korea? Well, the Democrats don't learn a damn thing. But I think conservatives, we have common sense still left, and we know there is no negotiating with these people. People who believe that Kim Jong-un is a god.
A legit god.
How do you negotiate?
An actual, I want to clarify that. An actual deity.
Yes.
A legitimate god.
Yes.
Not, and again, it kind of brings me back to Islam a little bit, right? They think that this guy is of holy cloth. They think that he can levitate. They think that he doesn't poop. They think that he can and do anything he wants. That's the people who live there. Are we going to negotiate with that? Has it worked with Islam? The only difference between Kim Jong-un and Mohammed really is where they're located. Because as far as being put in a position of such high power that he can make any decision and everybody around him agrees and they go for the most part. If he writes it, it is so. They banned singing in something else this week. As some sort of mourning thing, the entire country stopped singing. Now, do some of them maybe think it's bullshit? Yeah, maybe, somewhere in the back of their mind. Are they going to stand up to find out? No. Why? Because you get strapped to a board and blown away with an AT-AT gun if you do.
I go back to that when you guys told me about that. I still go back to that mental image in my brain.
Yes.
Who thinks of taking an anti-aircraft gun to an individual? That's creative.
Yes.
But that's the kind of person that you're dealing with. And I've also heard people say, why don't the North Koreans just rise up?
Because they can't.
In opposition to this guy. Well, if your belief system, and it's not just a belief system that emerged only under Kim Jong-un, the other Kims, the Uns, the Ils, etc., before were also a godhead.
Right. And I brought this up before.
Their mindset is you can't fuck with God.
Well, and I've brought this up before, right? You're generationally removed now to the point that the grandfather made this shit up. You had people under the father who went, yeah, I remembered when they weren't gods, and all of a sudden he became a god, and something's a little odd. You're now in that next generation. You're in that generation with a vast youth, and that anyone probably under the age of 30 doesn't have history books. They don't know what happened before they were born other than word of mouth, and they're now being told this guy is a god. Folks, if you could clear your brain right now and forget everything you have ever learned and started learning over again, and for the first 18 years of your life, every time you went to school, anytime you went to a public event, family event, pictures, all this stuff was of Sackhead Sean, and you were told that Sackhead Sean was a deity, a god.
I believe it.
Some people may argue that I am, but
huzzah,
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 huzzah, huzzah.
Rose petals scattered before you walk.
Your brain would not be able to argue with it because you don't have information to the contrary. Now the reality is I'm semi-bald, chubby, white, and really not godlike.
Don't forget your fingers.
Thank you very much. Very fat. There you go. But the reality of the situation is you have information to the contrary. You know better. These people do not know better. They will fight for him, even if they don't realize that they shouldn't be. Now, we've tried some information propaganda. We've tried to get the word out. And yes, I'm sure there are some people in his tight circle, the older people, who keeps getting purged for some strange reason, who are like, yeah, I remember when the father was telling me that the grandfather made all this shit up while we were having martinis one day. But I'm in power, and I kind of like that. So, what the fuck? They're getting purged for a reason. Their history, much like us pulling down Confederate statues, their history is being erased and completely rewritten the way that they want it to be.
That's an entirely separate story. And history. What was it that George Santayana said? Those who... God, I'm going to screw this up. Those who forget history or something like that are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. I've called it for years. I call it historical Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
We have it here currently. The leftists, the new generations, Gen Z, they have no concept of history. And the sad thing is they don't appear to have an interest in learning that.
But they have the ability to learn it.
Oh, they have. Oh, yes.
And you still see how brainwashed they are.
They're not stupid, but the things we worry about, as you were saying.
And it's not even a matter of their intelligence. The information's readily available.
It's right here. For a while, until Google decides that they're going to
remove it. Right.
Eliminate it as much
I understand
as
that.
possible.
But the reality of the situation is we have a generation in this country who could very easily find out the reality of our history and the true history of this country, and they're too lazy to do it.
And I'm not interested.
So now transport that mindset to North Korea where they don't have information, they don't have technology, they can't Google it, they can't do any of that shit. The only information they receive are from the people that give them food and control them daily.
It's not called the Hermit Kingdom for nothing.
And there's a reason. We talked about intel at the break with North Korea. And I said, hey, listen, you said, God, I hope we have intel that says X, Y, and Z, and we're able to figure out X, Y, and Z. And I said, hey, listen, I hope you're right. But I can't believe that under the last 8 years, a massive amount, just the war on terror alone, and I'm not giving Obama a break, but the war on terror alone taking up a vast majority of our intel resources, right? We're spread all over the place trying to gather intel. Now you go to a hermit nation where there's not a lot of electronics in and out. There's not a lot of ability to go after them in a cyber way.
There is no radio-free Europe.
There's no radio-free anything. It's very, very difficult to get somebody to physically infiltrate that country and then infiltrate the upper echelon enough to get legitimate information. Satellite can only do so much. Satellite gives us ideas where some munitions stuff is, but it doesn't tell us what's on their planning board and their inner circles and all this other stuff.
Like trying to infiltrate a mosque.
Yeah.
Like trying to infiltrate the Al-Aqsa Mosque in New York City.
Yes.
Good luck with that.
So you ask me, do I think we can get out of North Korea without firing a shot? 2 years ago, I would have said yes, absolutely. We just need to be hard on them. We need to strip them away. We need to put pressure on China, and we need South Korea to be on board with us. Now I don't know. I just don't know. Look at, this guy was told, you cook off another nuclear weapon and bad things are going to happen. He cooked off another nuclear weapon. We're going to sanction. You're getting blood from a stone. You can't sanction this guy anymore. If I physically walk into your house and remove everything and turn the lights off on my way out, and you commit another bad act, I'm going to come back in. What am I going to do? What else can I take from you? And they've been sanctioned to shit over the last 15, 20 years, and they still developed the very thing they weren't supposed to be developing. Do you think you can negotiate with a country who will, A, go against everything they're being told not to do, B, snub their nose at the UN, the big useless fucking organization that they are, C, snub their nose at most of our presidents over and over and over again, and D, despite the fact that they're supposed to have this huge economic chokehold that will absolutely cripple them from producing and develop anything, still threw together an ICBM that could strike the middle of this country? How much more fucking evidence do we need that you can't negotiate with these fucking idiots?
And yet, the glory is you have people like Barack Hussein Obama and leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots who have the mindset still, after they learn nothing from history. Yes, we can still negotiate with these people if we just take a big breath and
negotiated with Hitler really well, didn't we?
And say, namaste, namaste. And we sit down at a nice even table with some steaming mugs of cocoa. We can all come to an agreement, can't we? Sure we can.
On their best day of negotiating, we couldn't end a war with them. We got a ceasefire. That was on their best day of negotiating.
And then we had Barack Hussein Obama, who decided that it was going to be a wonderful thing to send pallets
of money.
Literally, pallets of over close to $1 billion in cash in the back of a C-17 right out of a Robert Ludlum novel. You can't write this shite, as I say, all the damn time. And then we sent that money over in order to, well, we need to appease these people. The money went right into the hands of terrorists.
Yes.
It's like trying to send food to Africa or cash to Africa.
Yes.
Does it ever get to the people that need it?
No.
Hell no. The dictators siphon the crap all over it, and the people that need it get a few bags of rice, and that's
and
about
this doesn't
it.
end with North Korea. Look, no matter how we get out of North Korea, and I don't think we can do it peacefully. I really don't.
I'm afraid it's going to go bad.
I hate it. But I'm also pissed at the leaders of this nation for allowing it to get to where it is. Folks, you can look at me and yell war hawk all you want. Oh, you're just trying to drum up drums of war. You just want to go to war. Blah, blah. No. In some ways, you know what? I kind of do now with them. Because, like I said, I have small children and family that I give a fuck about. But the reality of the situation is, don't put this shit on me. Don't put this shit on Trump. put this shit on everybody for 25 years before him, all the way back to Carter.
Well, and what did we say when we were outside on the break?
Minus Reagan.
We said, sometimes in terms of human nature, it really gets down to something simple. When you have a bully, no matter who he may be, if a bully is not opposed in some fashion, the bully only becomes more emboldened.
Yes.
Look at Bill Clinton. Look at his lack of response to the Middle East. Look at his lack of response to Iran, to Iraq, to North Korea, and so on. And it keeps building to the point where they believe. Isn't it interesting how China started pushing and then really ramped up pushing towards the end, the middle portion of Barack's terms. And towards the end, they decided, let's check this guy with the dead orange cat on his head and see what kind of metal he's made of.
Right.
And then, then we shipped some really cute bombs into Syria and struck some people and said, we're not the previous administration.
Right. The problem is what are they going to do? The problem is where and how far can and will they go?
It's almost. I'm afraid it's almost the Kobayashi Maru scenario. It's the scenario is such that it's almost unwinnable.
Yeah.
So then, where's our Kirk? Who is our Kirk? And how is he going to get around the Kobayashi Maru scenario?
So right now
we have to hope there's a Kirk out there somewhere.
Right now we have to. The hardest facts are this: if all of a sudden, maybe a short time from now, there's a military coup in that country and he is out, and then we have somebody who wants to discuss with us. That's best case scenario right now. I hate to say it. That is best case scenario.
Negotiations are not going to do it.
Worst case scenario.
Appeasement is not going to do it. Sanctions are not going to do it.
None of that has happened. Worst case scenario is this. We have to go in and drop a shit ton of munitions. A medium case scenario. Shit ton of munitions on them and hope that it's enough. Hope that we get that first strike capability in. Hope that we cut the snake off the head, hope that their artillery doesn't activate all that much, and that they kind of lose heart and don't have the war. That's kind of medium case scenario. Worst case scenario is that he attempts to launch and flattens South Korea in the process. I know there's a whole bunch of people out there saying, well, if we strike, he's going to have to South Korea, and if we don't strike, this is going to happen. We don't know. We just don't have the information. So we should act on the information we do have. That he could potentially annihilate this country or a vast majority of this country through nuclear war and does not give a shit if we live or die. Because we are the biggest thorn in his side from him spreading his totalitarian communist leadership. We are the one that stops him from expanding and going into South Korea and taking it over and stealing all of their resources and negotiating with all these other countries. We're the only one that stands between that, because the UN does shit, China does shit, Russia does shit. We're the only ones that stand there and stand up to him and say, and even with sanctions and shit like that, I mean, I hate to say that they did nothing, but they did nothing. But at least there was an attempt to hold him at bay. And we're going to be the only thing that if he gets to us first, he can start spreading out. If he annihilates Seoul with artillery first, Korea could go down. And all the resources and technology and all the other shit that's in Seoul right now is going to fall into their hands. It's a very dangerous situation. Yes, I hope for a military coup in the next week, tomorrow, in which we get a military leader who says, hey, we don't want our people to live like this. We want to come to the table. Kim Jong-un will hand you his head on a plate. Great. But look in your heart of hearts and be realistic about this.
It's like trying to put a suitcase under a table and kill Hitler.
Yeah. Operation Valkyrie.
Where do you... Are there people like that in his circle? And the answer is, who the hell knows?
Right.
Can we bank on that? It'd be nice to see. Can we bank on it? I don't think we can. I'm afraid the only answer to this is going to be some people are going to get killed.
Right.
And it's a matter of trying to reduce the number killed. And I'm afraid that South Korea is going to take a big damn hit.
And there's going to be a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
I mean, he doesn't even have to go missiles. All he has to do is have a general pick up a phone, ring a ding, hello, launch all artillery. And then you get literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of munitions in the air simultaneously, all targeted. Seoul is, I don't know, what, 30 miles, 40 miles away?
Not even that much, yeah.
From the DMZ.
Well, folks,
that's a hop, skip, and a jump.
And you say, it's funny, this is where old technology will benefit them. You say pick up the phone. They use FM and AM radio, and they transmit codes, just like they did during the Cold War, just like they did during the Korean War. So even if you take out their quote-unquote telecommunications, it's not hard to build a radio station. It's really not when you're a government. And all you need is to be able to repeat it throughout the land. And they know what those little codes mean. There was just one a couple months ago.
Hell, they might have North Korean carrier pigeons for all I know.
But they had one a couple months ago where some radio code went out over their radio waves from their state broadcast, and it was picked up by South Korean intelligence, and it was obviously a code. Nobody knew what the hell it meant. But it said, hey, this is the stuff that they still use. They use it, but they're immune from getting hacked. They're immune from having telephone wires cut. They're immune from a lot of things by doing that. The old technology sometimes outsmarts the new technology. It's a very scary situation. I really want people to reflect on that this week. I really want people to think about it. Don't think about what I'm saying and agree. Think about the reality and come up with your own conclusion, because it's getting to the point now where our lives, your life, my children's lives, your children's lives, your families, all of it's at risk. And we may not think so, but it is.
Wound my heart with a monotonous languor.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
And it's not like the war on terror where, yeah, they can do a lot of vast, wide damage, but they're, more often than not, they hit small locally. This will be an entire swath of our brothers and sisters of this nation who would be taken off this planet, and then the rest of us east of it would suffer the fallout.
Well, this must have been a damn engaging show.
We did 2 hours in North Korea.
I noticed that we still have Joe in chat, White Mamba in chat, Butcher, Dan in chat, Dave in chat, and Mary.
Mary's still up?
Mary is still up in chat. Holy crap, it's 1 a.m.
Yes, it is, and we love her for staying up. Love her.
Wow.
And love everybody else who stayed right with us here on the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network.
No kidding.
Thank you to everybody in chat. I know I didn't get to you guys much tonight, and I apologize. Thank you to everyone who's watching on YouTube, Facebook. I appreciate it. Check us out, shrmedia.com. Make sure you check out our news articles, and thank God for Dan Butcher.
That's
I'll say
right.
that out loud.
He's an updating kind of guy.
He is an updating kind of guy. Tomorrow, make sure you check out all the great shows here on SHR Media. Of course, the day will end with the Bloviating Zeppelin at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Prior to him, you have Jersey Joe.
Jersey Joe, the river of common sense.
Then Ralph, Mel, everyone else throughout the day. Make sure you check out everyone here on the Sackheads Radio Show. In the SHR Media Network. We'll see you next Wednesday.
They knew.
Big Nose, Clint, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Once again,
your laryngitis kicked
late
out.
to the damn party, mister.
And I'm going to keep this picture up for next week.
I think you should.
We will see you next week, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Duke. Radio. Duke.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.